Hello everyone in the 5 continents, and welcome to another edition of our international English online meetings. As usual, please let me share my screen. Okay, let me my screen here it is. And let me say that today is July the 26th, and this is our 150th International English Online Meeting. If you want to watch our past webinars, you can watch them in our YouTube channel, World Educators Community, or as some people are doing now, like Ofelia Mendoza, for example, from Mexico, you can watch it in Facebook Live in Jaime Ancajima Teacher Trainer. Would you mind reading this quote, please, �絵𝐵𝐿𝐵erto?
Your mind is a powerful thing. When you fill it with positive thoughts, your life will start to change.
Do you agree, �絵𝐵𝐿𝐵erto?
Completely. Yes, I can't agree more. Right?
Thank you. Luis, please help me.
Don't change anything, just change the way you look at the things.
Right?
Yeah, it's about perspective. It's
Yes,
about
that's true.
how you approach things in life.
That's true. That's true, my dear Luis. Well, who are our guest speakers in the rest of 2026? On August the 16th, Lorena Ojeda from Argentina. On August the 30th, we'll have our good friend Rana Bilal Anwar from England. Then on September the 13th, Gabriela León de Guevara from Mexico. Later, our good friend Mónica Rodríguez from Argentina on September 27th. Later, Ofelia Mendoza from Mexico on October the 11th. Then, Rafael, who is present on October 25th. After that, and the last one, I guess, Gracia Mendoza from Honduras and Julio Roa from Nicaragua on November the 1st. But today, who is our guest speaker? Let me say a few words about María Alejandra Mareco. I took that photo from your Facebook account, dear Ale. So let me say a few words about you. Ale is an experienced and highly qualified educator with a master in teaching English as a foreign language, a master in bilingual education, and over 29 years of experience in diverse educational settings. She's skilled in curriculum development, bilingual education, and teacher training. Proven track record in enhancing student engagement and facilitating language acquisition. She's an experienced researcher and lecturer in sociolinguistics. So first of all, let me say thank you so much, dear Ale, for your time and your expertise that you are going to share with us this morning. So you may start, dear Ale.
Okay, thank you, Jaime. Okay, here it is. Okay. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. As Jaime said before, my name is María Alejandra Mareco, and I am an educator and researcher. Today, I'm going to present the research work that I did as a teacher, as a Spanish teacher at Wilburn Elementary School, which is part of the Wake County public school system in North Carolina, United States. And my presentation today is titled Shifting Tongues, Shaping Selves, Language Loss and Translanguaging in Spanish-English Classrooms. This study emerged from my daily experience teaching Spanish to children from kindergarten through 5th grade in a highly multilingual school. I would like to tell you just a little bit before beginning. This school, as I said before, is multilingual. It has a 62% of Spanish-speaking students, and then Vietnamese, some Arabian, and American. Okay, so many of my students come from Hispanic backgrounds, as I said before. And they entered the English-only education system. And as they begin learning English, they also begin to lose confidence in their home language. This is something that I noticed. So through this research, I wanted to understand how classroom practices, teacher attitudes, and school language policies influence that process of language loss, and how translanguaging can serve as a bridge to restore linguistic confidence, cultural identity, and academic engagement at the same time. In other words, this is not just a story about languages. It's a story about belonging, about how children negotiate who they are through languages they use or stop using. Yes? Because the language they use now is English and they stop using is Spanish. Okay. So this presentation explores how English dominant classroom environments influence Spanish-speaking students' linguistic identities, and how translanguaging can counteract language loss. This study was based on ethnographic fieldwork conducted at my school, Wilburn Elementary, and the study examines how institutional monolingualism shapes students' attitudes toward Spanish, and how translanguaging movements within instruction foster agency, comprehension, and self-esteem. So for example, I studied a lot of Cummings, Hornenberg's, Garcia, and Wedge theory in order to analyze the field notes, the students' artifacts, and I based my research on reflective journals. And so the findings that I got show that when students are encouraged to use their full linguistic repertoire, they not only improve academic performance, but also rebuild pride and identity as bilingual learners. And the study advocates translanguaging as a pedagogical and ethical response to language loss in English-only educational contexts. Okay. So I will tell you something about Wilburn. Wilburn Elementary School is a public K-5 school located in Raleigh. Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina, and it is within the Wake County public school system. This is the largest district in the state, in North Carolina. And the school currently serves around 608 students. And as you can see here, more than half of them, about the 52%, come from Hispanic backgrounds. The rest of the students' body is made up of 27 African American, about 10% white, and 6 Asian. About around 5% are multicultural community, multiracial students. And this diversity makes Wilburn a truly multilingual and multicultural community. However, what is particularly significant is that almost all of the students, 100% of them, qualify for free and reduced price lunch, which tell us that many families face economic challenges, and that often these, let's say, intersect with language barriers. Yes. So this is the community where I conducted my research. So despite this rich diversity, the school operates under English-only instructional model because the official language in North America is English. And this means that Spanish and other home languages are not formally integrated into the curriculum. And while there is ESL support, the main focus remains on English acquisition, not bilingual development. And this is precisely where the problem begins. Over time, many Spanish-speaking students start to lose confidence in their home language. They begin to associate English with school, success, and Spanish with informality or even embarrassment. And this phenomenon is what researchers such as Lambert even calls obstructive bilingualism, when learning a second language results in the gradual erosion of the first one. And my work therefore seeks to document this process of language shift and loss, but also to explore how translanguaging practices can reverse that trend, transforming linguistic difference into a resource for learning, identity, and inclusion. Okay. Why translanguaging in my Spanish class? Okay, so you know that translanguaging is the use of Spanish and English in order to develop the linguistic repertoire, the full. But why this in my Spanish classroom? As I said before, my Spanish classroom cannot simply be a traditional foreign language class focused on isolated vocabulary and, for example, some structures. It has become an intentional translanguaging space with a very clear purpose. I worked with two different groups of students who share the same classroom but carry different linguistic stories. On one side, I have Hispanic students who were slowly losing their home language, who didn't understand English clearly. Many of these students were, Latinos. They understand Spanish, but English dominates every academic space in their school life. And when they were asked to speak only Spanish in the Spanish class, they often shut down. They feel embarrassed, or they think that their Spanish is not good enough. They didn't want to speak Spanish. And translanguaging allows them to use both Spanish and English, of course, to think, to make meaning, and to express who they are, without fear or frustration. And it helped them reconnect with a language that is part of their identity, because they are Spanish speaker, yes, but they are losing the language. On the other side, I have monolingual English speakers and students who came from completely different linguistic backgrounds. The Vietnamese, the Arabic, for example, and many of them initially resist learning Spanish or don't see its relevance. Through translanguaging, they can enter the language slowly and safely, for example. And they begin by mixing English explanation with individual Spanish words, short phrases, and eventually full sentences. And this lowers students' anxiety. And some of them build their curiosity. So they have begun bilingual participation in class. My teaching was also interdisciplinary. The Spanish content was aligned with the world language standards, but at the same time, I had to connect what I was teaching in Spanish with the topic students were learning in their homeroom classroom. For example, I associated everything with social studies, science, or literacy. And this allowed Hispanic students to access academic concepts in both languages, and it gave English-dominant students a meaningful reason to use Spanish as part of real curricular learning. So, in this sense, translanguaging is not simply a linguistic strategy. It is a pedagogical response to Subtractive bilingualism, and a tool to ensure that every student can understand, can participate in class, and can feel that their language matters. Okay, so the theoretical framework that I use here, it was based mainly in James Cummings in the interdependence hypothesis that suggests that both languages in a bilingual learner's mind are interrelated. And skills and knowledge developed in one language can transfer to the other as long as both languages are supported. So we need, as teachers, we need to support both Spanish and English in this case. So when Spanish is neglected in school, students actually lose cognitive tools that could strengthen their English, for example. And then the other author that gave me everything to write this was Ofelia Garcia 𝐒𝐲𝐞𝐵, who view that translanguaging is not a problem. It can help students solve this confusion that they may have in their mind. And so in my study, translanguaging moments were not mistakes, but they were acts of creativity and identity. Yes? For example, one of the students once told me, mi abuela came aquí por una vida mejor. Yes? That is a space of translanguaging, so I allow them to use both language at the same time to express what they thought. Yes? And then also I based my studies on phone number, about the continua of biliteracy. And this helps us understand that bilingualism is not a fixed state, but a continuum that depends on how language is valued across contexts, across home, school, and society. So when students' home language are validated, they move towards more balanced, empowered forms of bilingualism. And finally, the concept of linguistic capital reminds us that schools are not neutral spaces. English holds institutional power, while other languages like Spanish are often undervalued. And this affects students' sense of belonging and linguistic confidence. Recognizing this imbalance is essential to building more confident classrooms. And to connect these theories, I also work with Coyle, Hood, and Marsh, yes, which integrates content, communication, cognition, and culture. That means 𝐶𝐿, yes. And 𝐶𝐿 was a model that was really helpful for me to teach and for the student to grasp the meaning. And this framework complements translanguaging by showing how language learning can be embedded in meaningful content while honoring cultural identity. Okay, so which were my questions for this research? The first one was, how does language loss manifest among Spanish-speaking students in English-dominant classrooms? Yes, so I wanted to understand what language loss actually looks like on a daily basis, not as an abstract idea, but through real classroom behaviors. The writing patterns and students' own words that they use in their everyday learning. And for instance, I observed how some children shifted from using Spanish at home to speaking mostly English at school, even with their bilingual peers. And others expressed discomfort or even shame when asked to speak Spanish in class, and they were Spanish speakers. And these patterns tell us that language loss is not only linguistic, it is emotional and social at the same time. So this gave me another question. How do translanguaging practices influence students' linguistic confidence and identity? In contrast to the first, this question focuses on empowerment. I wanted to explore whether by allowing students to use both English and Spanish freely in their learning, we could rebuild this confidence and help them see bilingualism as an advantage, not a limitation. And together, these two questions allow me to examine both sides of the same reality. The loss that comes from monolingual instructions and the recovery that happens when translanguaging becomes part of the classroom culture. Yes. And then I realized that this is something that I have never seen in my English teaching here in Argentina. It was completely different. Okay. So from these questions emerged these objectives that you can see here. The first objective was to document language shift, to observe, describe, and to analyze how students' use of Spanish and English change across different contexts, the classroom, the recess, and informal interactions. I wanted to trace what happens when a child gradually begins to replace Spanish with English, not only linguistically, but emotionally. And the second was to identify translanguaging moments, those natural, spontaneous instances when students mix both languages to make meaning, to express emotion, or to connect ideas. And instead of treating those moments as errors, I analyze them as acts of agency, creativity, and identity construction. And finally, my third objective was to empower teachers as language advocates. I strongly believe that teachers can play a transformative role by validating students' linguistic repertoire. And so these were the objectives of my research. Okay. And this study followed a qualitative ethnographic design, which allowed me to explore the lived experience of the students within their natural school context. The research took place during the regular Spanish classes at Wilbur, where I taught students from kindergarten through 5th grade. I collected data continuously throughout the school year, focusing not only on what the students said, but on how they use the language to interact, to learn, and to express identity. So first, I took notes from their interactions. And then this note I capture, I try to shape according to their communication, their classroom dynamics. And I also included observations made during recess, breakfast duty, bus duties, moments where language use was more spontaneous and authentic. And then I analyzed the students' work samples, bilingual stories, journals, visual projects that were created inside classrooms. Yes. So this was the methodology. So all these artifacts show how students negotiated meaning across both languages and how Spanish and English coexisted in their learning. I conducted informal conversation with the students too during transitions, and I also kept teachers' journal and reflective entries. And this served as a mirror to analyze my own teaching. And I tried to look not only inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom. Yes. Okay, one of the clear findings that I had from all this information I got is that language shift among Spanish-speaking students was a pattern. I observed in daily classroom interaction many children had already internalized the idea that English is the appropriate or the expected language at school, and that Spanish should remain only at home. One student told me, for example, that I don't speak Spanish at school because the teacher doesn't. He said to me, I don't speak Spanish at school because the teacher doesn't. And also some of them told me, I don't speak Spanish at school because I want to become a gringo. And these simple sentences said a lot to me. It showed how deeply institutional language shapes students' behavior. Even though these children are bilingual, they start to associate English with school learning and success, while Spanish becomes something private, informal, and only to speak at home. And over time, I noticed that even among peers who share Spanish as a home language, English often became the language they spoke to play, to group work, or conversation. And the shift was subtle, but it remained every day in the classroom. Several students also display what I call linguistic insecurity, hesitation, laughter, self-correction when speaking Spanish in front of others. They would often look at me to see if their Spanish sounded right. And this reaction reflects not a lack of ability, but a loss of confidence in their mother tongue. And the social message is that Spanish is somehow less valued in academic spaces. So this pattern confirms that language loss in English dominant school is not caused by forgetting vocabulary. It is the result of a systemic silence. Yes. So this is what I noticed. And while language loss reflected the challenges of the English dominant model, translanguaging offered an entirely different picture. It reflected recovery, creativity, and some kind of pride. During my classes, students often switched naturally between English and Spanish to make meaning. For example, one day, while I was working on a writing task, a student said, my mamá, and mamá in Spanish, not my mamá no sabe hablar English, but she's learning poquito a poquito. This sentence simply captures exactly what Garcia described as translanguaging. That is the dynamic use of both languages to express thought, emotions, and identity. Instead of correcting this hybrid form, I encourage students to use their full linguistic repertoire to connect ideas. And a clear example came from our social studies unit on migration, which, because we usually celebrate the Hispanic Heritage Month at school, and this, when we were celebrating, I usually made our students work with this, telling them who were people who were really important for the American history, but were from Hispanic heritage. So students explored stories of Latin American immigrants and created bilingual posters that mix personal family stories with academic content. And many wrote phrases like, mi abuela came here por una vida mejor. And this bilingual production showed that when students are allowed to draw from both languages, their engagement and comprehension increases. And translanguaging transformed the classroom into an inclusive space where every child could participate. And English dominant students learn authentic in Spanish expression. So I use in both ways, not only translanguaging for Spanish speakers, but translanguaging for English speakers. And it became like a game in the classroom, a sheer language of understanding rather than separation. And in my classroom, it became the bridge, let's say, that connected who students are at home with who they are expected to be at school. And here we have an example, a clear example. And this example comes from a fourth grader student. One afternoon, a student came to me and said, "No, Miss Mareco, I didn't do the activity porque no understand in English y no sé escribir in Spanish." In this single sentence, we can hear the struggle between two words, English and Spanish, and the uncertainty of not fully belonging to the Spanish or the English-speaking people. It's not that the child didn't have ideas, it's that she couldn't find a safe linguistic space to express what she knew, yes? And so these kind of examples, I mean, I have a lot of them. They were all the time telling me things, yes? But only when they knew that I allowed them to speak both languages together. And this moment, when she mixed everything to tell me why she didn't do the activity, stay with me. It reminded me how crucial it is for schools to make room for students' full linguistic repertoire. And translanguaging, and here I can see clearly that translanguaging allows the students to make meaning and to communicate using everything they know, not by separating languages, but by integrating them. And when I responded by encouraging her to write in both languages, she smiled and said, "Oh, I can do that." And she did. So in my classroom, they could write down mixing both languages. When they didn't know something in English, they wrote in Spanish. And when they didn't know in Spanish, they wrote in English. And the same happens with both, with the English speakers and the Spanish speakers. And it was really amazing. So this is another finding. I think that perhaps is the most powerful evidence of change. And this came from the students themselves. And I can say that after several weeks of incorporating translanguaging into my lessons, one of the students told me, "I feel smarter when I use both because he could express what he knew." And that sentence summarized everything this study stands for. It reveals how allowing students to use their two languages doesn't confuse them, it empowers them. And translanguaging becomes a way to rebuild confidence and reconnect with their bilingual identity. For many of my students, English had become the language of school and authority, while Spanish was something used only at home. But when both languages were welcome in my classroom, students began to participate more, take risks, and even help one another. And on the other side, we have the English dominant learners, and they became curious about Spanish. And the Spanish dominant learners started to speak more freely without fear of being corrected. What we witnessed was not just improved comprehension, but the restoration of identity. And translanguaging gave them permission to exist fully, to bring their all their knowledge into my classroom. And when students use both languages, they don't just perform better academically, let's say. They think more deeply and feel more capable. In short, translanguaging transformed the classroom from a place of correction into a place of belonging. And it was really funny because, you know, the kids stopped from, okay, I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to say because I don't feel confident to mixing the languages, and they did it quite well. So I may say that there is one message I want to make absolutely clear. Language loss is not something inevitable. What my classroom experience and what this study demonstrates is that when school opens space for students for linguistic repertoire, something beautiful happens. Children regain their voices. They rediscover pride in who they are and where they come from. And translanguaging is not simply a strategy. It is an act of inclusion and equity. It challenges the English-only mindset that has dominated the United States classroom for decades and reminds us that all languages are resources. Yes, resources for learning. For teachers means that we have the power and the responsibility to become linguistics advocates. Whether we teach in bilingual or monolingual schools, we can validate our students' home languages through simple human gestures, allowing a bilingual answer, for example, celebrating linguistic creativity and connected classroom, learning to share knowledge. It doesn't matter the language they are speaking. And education should empower, not replace. So a child's first language is always something that is rich for them to use in a bilingual setting. When we embrace translanguaging, we are not only improving language outcomes, we are restoring identity, belonging. So the takeaway is clear. If we change how we see language, we change how children see themselves. And that's where real education begins. And as educators, researchers, and human beings, we must remember this. Language is not a problem to fix. It's a resource to grow. Around the world, millions of children navigate their school lives between languages. And nowadays, with the technology, this happens every day. What we often call language gaps are, in fact, bridges that connect culture, perspective, ways of thinking. And my experience at Wilburn Elementary is not unique. Whether in the United States, Latin America, or Asia, we are all witnessing how linguistic diversity can become a form of collective intelligence, for example. And the challenge is to move from monolingual mindset to a multilingual consciousness, not that values every child's full repertoire, one that values, all the children's linguistic repertoire, and we have to see them as part of a global learning. So I can say that it's about transforming how we see knowledge, identity, and communication itself. When we allow students to bring their whole selves, their language, culture, voices, we are not only teaching content, we are shaping global citizens who know that diversity is strength and that every language has something powerful to teach us. Yes? So this is my presentation. This is my study about this bilingualism. I know that this is something different, that sometimes we are teaching English Yes. So in a monolingual setting, that is in Latin America, we have now this opportunity to make our students speak with another native speaker. So the focus of teaching is somehow different. But this is my experience in a bilingual setting in North America.
Okay, very interesting, dear Maria Alejandra. Some people may have some questions here. So if anybody has a question or a comment to make, please open up your microphone and you can make your question. Hello, Eliberto, go on. Hello, Roxy in Lima.
I have a comment. First of all, excellent, Maria Alejandra, your presentation. Very interesting. Research based on real results and living experiences. Great, fantastic. What you live there in the States with that, those students in those schools, fantastic. A great experience.
Thank you, Eliberto.
You made a question or a comment before, Eliberto. You said that's a real fact. It depends on the country and region students are from. Even within South America, our Spanish is a little different, but we can communicate anyway without much troubles. Something to say about that comment you made before?
Well. In Latin America, we have a variety of Spanish, right? But it doesn't matter if people come from the students come from different countries. Sometimes we have different ways of communicating, but at the end we can communicate effectively. It doesn't matter if the words are not the same, but at the end we can communicate. If people from Central America, people from South America, at the end we can communicate effectively.
Right, right. Agree with you. Anybody else, please, who wants to make a question or a comment? Could you please show Ale the slide with the takeaways, with the conclusions? Maybe that,
Here.
yeah, thank you so much. Anybody else, please? Hello, Ivan in Costa Rica. Hello, Roxy in Lima, Peru. Luis in Ecuador. Juan Rafael in Mexico. Estefanía, Manu, and Sasha. Anybody, please feel free to open up your microphone and make a question or a comment.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Please, go on, dear Luis.
Now talking about Spanish speakers and can you hear me?
Yes, Juan Rafael.
Have you noticed that beyond the economic level or anything like that, is there a factor that makes some nationality stand out from the rest? Is there anything? Maybe I was thinking about the national pride that some countries have. Does that have anything to do with, does that influence? For example, I am from this country and we are very, we love our nation and we take pride on our in our culture. You know what I mean? Does that
Yes.
stand out in a way, perhaps?
I say that according to the population in my school, most of the kids that were from Latin America, most of these kids, sometimes they feel they rejected from saying that they were Latin. Some of them, they try to say, I am a gringo, when you know that they come from Guatemala or Mexico. They didn't show pride of their country. At the very beginning, when they arrived to the United States, they feel somehow pride of their country and they try to speak Spanish, for example, but later, as time passes, time by, they reject, they don't want to speak Spanish. And even, for example, I knew that you know Spanish. Why you try to speak only English. We are in the Spanish class. Let's try to make the exercises together. And they say, no, I don't speak Spanish. So the pride was something that only a few students show. Yes. I don't know why. I mean, I think that I know why, but they try to avoid their language. Some of them are really proud of being Latin American, but it's only a few of them. And so in my Spanish class, I try to make them think you should be really proud of who you are, who your mother is, who your father is, where you come from. You are bilingual. Not everybody in the world is bilingual. And being bilingual, you are always a step forward to anybody else. So, but they don't show pride.
Dear Ale, could you please stop showing your PowerPoint so we can see everyone who is present and make it easier for the questions? Thank you so much. Okay, now,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Now, anybody else has a question or comment? Ivan Suazo in Costa Rica, please. Good morning.
Good morning, Jaime and everyone, and good morning, the world. Thank you, Maria Alejandra, for great research and presentation and summarizing your thoughts, findings. I'm thinking about this, the last piece of the conversation, thinking about it's not easy to be vulnerable before some people. It's sometimes unsafe to be vulnerable. So I'm thinking about students accepting and promoting that they are bilingual, they know Spanish and they're Latin or African, Asian. So it's not easy if they're not welcome, if they're not accepted, they're not embraced. So it's so unsafe. And this happens not only in the US. I live in Costa Rica and I'm from Nicaragua. So every time I go back and visit my family, I do my best to make sure I'm using the Nicaraguan code, the accent. I'm not using Costa Rican code. So we have some words are named differently, different accents. So one of the big differences is in Costa Rica, they sound the last consonant. In Nicaragua, we don't sound the last consonant, especially if the consonant is S. So we don't, it's just economy of the language. It's a linguistic economy. It's nothing wrong. It's just, like it's the way it is. And we're not the only country who speak like this. So, but when I go back to Nicaragua, I have to, sometimes people, oh, hey, you're sounding like Costa Rica. And it's hard to be vulnerable before people I don't know might be mocking or laughing at me or, like, some of the people say, "Oh, nice! You're sounding different. So I'm okay." So here in Costa Rica, when I go and do paperwork, I do my best before I show my ID to sound like Costa Rican. Otherwise, I would be treated differently. And then they say, "Oh, you're not from here. Show me your ID." The moment I sound like not Costa Rican, so I practice. I do a rehearsal when I go to an office and I sound like I'm a Costa Rican. So it's easy for me to complete paperwork. So I'm thinking about this. It's huge. I mean, students, students, right? And families, not only families and communities, right? Latin communities, immigrants. So when they go in the system, when they're not welcome, they're not accepted. And the moment they say, I speak Spanish, oh my God. So that's overwhelming. So it's safe or it's safer not to say I am Latin, I speak Spanish. So because the feeling of belonging, acceptance, and being cared, loved. So, but thank you for sharing. Pass it
Thank you.
to
That is
Jaime.
true.
Ivan. Ale, go on.
That is true what you are saying. Yes. But I think that it's like the Latin, you know that nowadays the policy is quite difficult for Latin Americans there. But I can see that, for example, the Vietnamese students, they spoke Vietnamese. They they didn't were ashamed of doing. But I know that the political issues make that all the Latin American people living there try to avoid the circumstances in where you show up that you are Latino. Yes, I understand what you say. But even teachers suffer that. Yes. Because, for example, there are a lot of people from Jamaica, teachers from Jamaica teaching now in the United States, as they have this lack of teachers. That is a big amount of teachers. There's a lot of Jamaican teachers there, and they also feel like, okay, you are rejected from certain spaces because you are not American. And this is the reality. It's not easy nowadays.
Yeah, it's incredible to hear that, right? Anybody else who has a question or a comment to make or a comparison between this Alejandra's experience and an experience in your country? Juan Rafael in Mexico.
Me, Jaime. Good morning, everybody.
Hello,
Greetings
hello,
from
dear
Mexico.
Juan.
Yeah, greetings from Mexico. I want to congratulate Maria Alejandra for her study. It was interesting. I remember, well, I have read about translanguaging for years. I have also read Ofelia Garcia, and it was really interesting. When it was like a new concept, it was kind of difficult sometimes to understand because, for example, in my case, I learned English here in Mexico, obviously, but in classrooms where it was forbidden to speak Spanish in order for you to get into the new language, in this case, English, but allowing students understand the coexistence of different languages, mother tongue and the second language, has brought, according to the studies and according to the experience we have, very positive experiences, very positive results. I love what she found in her study about the teachers being like a bridge, teachers still having participation in order to allow students have the coexistence of languages. So translanguaging became a concept that is very common. Like 10 years ago, there have been many studies, and these days we see it as something positive, something about identity. In my case, for example, I feel really proud of being Mexican, and I speak English. So I'm proud and I love my language. I love my culture, but I am also aware, or I am also a little part of the American or British culture or the impact of English around the world. To finish, an anecdote: we just had the World Cup here in Mexico, USA, and Canada. I love football. In the day Mexico had a game versus England, there was a full campaign saying no English, in no ad, no English anywhere, because we were about to play versus England. I was really mad at that because I was feeling like, hey, it is a time where other countries, specifically England, can see that we Mexicans can do it. We speak English, we play good football, we can do many things. But the campaign was the opposite. Like no English today, no English in different like brands, ads, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. Nobody was speaking English or using a word in English. Even the politicians, no English today, not use yes, not use the word no, not use this, not use the other. And I was thinking, come on, Mexico is part of the world. We are in a global world, especially these days. So let the world know Mexico. And one bridge, and the most important bridge, I think, it's English, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you and congratulations, Maria Alejandra.
Definitely. Thank you, dear Juan Rafael. Something to say, Ale, about that?
Yes. What are you like? Yes, what you are saying is true, Juan Rafael. Eh, at the very beginning, I was bullied. I feel bullied there, even for my students, because I was Latin, I was Argentinian, and I spoke Spanish. But then, it's a process. And translanguaging is very useful in this context where it really exists bilingual speakers like this. And I would like to say that I use translanguaging and the 𝐾𝐿, Content Language Integrated Learning, to help my Latin American students develop content. Because students, what happens is that they acquire the English, the everyday English, and they speak very well. But if they go to the academic one, they fail. That is why I use translanguaging and 𝐾𝐿. So I try all the time I work with the teachers. It was really hard work because I had to look for the content they were developing in science, in social studies, in language, in math. And then I translated that to Spanish, and I mix the standards from one to the other. So in this way, I try to help my students.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting, dear Ale. Roxy, I don't know if you have a question or a comment to make. Your comments are usually very, very positive, and we love them.
Not
Please,
today.
dear Roxy.
No. No, I'm joking. Hello, everybody. Hello, Maria Alejandra. Thank you very much for your contribution and your research, which is, as people have mentioned before, not that easy when it comes to be something different from what is the common ones now. And for me, it's a kind of concern as well, because I do understand that you were teaching Spanish, right? So that's what you were focusing on students to use Spanish. But using Spanglish that the students were using there, it concerns me. You know why? Because if they are using English and Spanish in the same sentence, I don't know what grammar structure they are respecting. No, because I was reading one of the slides you shared before, and it was my mama and my papa, no papá, but papá, sabe inglés. And should be saben, because E is inclusion. So they're using Spanish and English and incorrect grammar, Spanish, grammar structure. So that concerns me. I do understand if they use Spanish, they should be all the sentences correct in Spanish. If they use English, all the sentences should be in English, because we know, those that we are teachers, we know that the grammar structure is different in English and Spanish. And if they are using Spanish and English in the same sentence, I don't know if we are going into the long time ago, a new language that was trying to be imposed, like Esperanto. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about it, which did not work. No, so I do understand that the brain has the capacity. If you are in a Spanish environment where you are teaching Spanish, everything should be in Spanish. If we are in an English environment teaching Spanish, Spanish. If we are in a Spanish environment teaching English, should be in English, because these guys now are little kids. Later, they're going to be teenagers, and they're going to continue using the same things, this is Spanglish. And when they had to present an interview in a proficiency exam, they won't pass, because they are not using either English or Spanish. No, and that we have to prepare them for this. In Peru, I'm from Lima, Peru. In Peru, the universities ask for a language exam. To get a master, we need to apply for an exam. And regularly, a language exam. And regularly, we apply for English. And we are not going to pass anyway if we speak in this way with Spanish and English at the same time. Or if it's English, or if it is Spanish. That's the part that concerns me. Are these kids going to be prepared to one day to separate these two and to identify English and Spanish separately? This is the first question I have. And then it's much easier to teach something new than to modify something that had been acquired before. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand
very
what
deep
you
questions, dear Roxy.
Yes, Rosie, I understand what you say. And this is something that's, I was afraid of. So every time, for example, every time they mix the language, I usually gave them the correct form in Spanish on the board, showing them how they should say this sentence or this structure. The fact is that I used translanguaging in my classroom was because they didn't want to learn Spanish at all. They rejected. I hate Spanish. I don't want to speak. I hate. It doesn't make sense in this country. We do not know. It's not necessary to speak Spanish. And even one of the kids say, ¿por qué voy a hablar español? ¿Por qué voy a hablar español si acá no quiere? El gringo no quiere que yo hable español, me decía. So, in this, I say, okay, I have to do something because I have to teach them Spanish. With kinder, first and second grade was easier because they got engaged easily. But third, fourth, and fifth grade, they reject it. They say, no, it's not necessary. So I tried something in between because English, the English speakers, that is to say the American, they didn't want to learn Spanish. They say, no, it's not necessary. No, it's not necessary. So, my duty was to teach Spanish. So I tried something in between. But in this way, I then realized that English speakers, okay, they learn something from Spanish, and the Spanish speaker learned something from English and Spanish at the same time. It was very difficult. And this about assessment is something that I also asked to Ofelia Garcia because I had the opportunity to talk to her. And she says, it is something that is not regulated nowadays. And
Yes, it's quite hard to face that situation. I do understand. Believe it or not, the same happens in my country, my city, with business people facing to English. They hate English, but their companies are American. And they work for an American company, and they have business meetings in English, and they need to communicate. And sometimes these people are not promoted, or they are not having the possibility to grow in their own companies because they don't have English.
Yes.
So same happens Peru, Spanish country,
Yeah.
where English is very intense in some places. They must do it. Probably, I don't know, Maria Alejandra, would have helped. It is, okay, this is like a one more language subject. You need to study it. If you want, okay, we are going to use in this small world in our classroom. And if you don't want to use it after or outdoors, don't use it. But if you listen to somebody, you will understand what the person is using when they are speaking Spanish. We little kids, the young kids, third, fourth, fifth, sixth graders, those need to negotiate. Okay, you're going to get this. Okay, this is a plus for the Spanish, because otherwise it's going to be quite hard and complicated. But let them. Parents decided to go to the United States. They have them living there. They have their own reasons, so we have to respect that. But since you have the big challenge to teach Spanish in an English country, it the same happens to us to teach English in a Spanish country. Some people are in favor, some are against. Believe it or not, that's what it happens with languages. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr.
No, thank you.
Yes, but I'm sorry,
yeah, sure.
but
Go.
Sometimes the Spanish speaking countries feels proud when their kids can learn another language, like English, Portuguese, Italian, or whatever. But what happens in North America is that they think that the only language that you need to know is English. Most of America's society are not bilingual, they don't speak another language rather than English. And this is what happened. I tried, even parents, Spanish-speaking parents told me, no necesito que mi hijo estudie español. But in this way,
kind of rude.
So it was really difficult. I was in a very difficult school, and it was very difficult for me. I tried to do my best, but and then that now, for example, all the schools have this program that is ESL, English as a Second Language, and now this is taken from school. It's not longer to exist.
Oh.
Yes, they are taken out from the schools. So ESL is disappearing from the educational context in North America because they don't want people to learn English as a second language. It's
You mean
a very
Spanish?
difficult time. It's a
Yeah,
very
it
difficult
is.
time.
It is. We got two more comments, Edilberto and then Ivan. Eliberto, go on. Your microphone, Eliberto.
Yes, I believe that some people haven't understood the importance of being bilingual, for example, in a modern world and in a globalized world like this. And not only bilingual, trilingual or speak polyglot, all right? And it is important, very important when you have those two realities and you have more chances, more advantages and less disadvantages, right? So people haven't understood that yet, unfortunately.
Or maybe they don't care,
Uh-huh.
which is worse, I would
Yeah,
say.
it's worse.
Right. Thank you, dear Eliberto. And finally, Ivan.
Thank you so much. Wow, a big takeaway from this conversation is from Maria Alejandra that a language is a resource. But what about if, from the perspective of right or wrong perspective, the resource belongs to the wrong side of the coin? You know, the enemy, the virus, the COVID, you know, the new COVID, the new virus, the wrong people. What can I do with that resource? As it's an not wanted resource. So why do I need this resource?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, before your final speech today, dear Ale and everyone, just let me remind you that let me see if I can show the okay, so on August 16th, that is in 2 Sundays, I guess, we will have Lorena Ojeda. She will be talking about integrated performance assessment and mindfulness in the English class with architecture students at UCSE. Okay, now I remember Gabriel Diaz Maggioli from Uruguay, the ex-president of IATEFL. I don't know if you have heard of him, but he said that we should have our own Cambridge exams in Latin America. He said that he said that it's okay if we speak English with our Mexican, Peruvian, Argentinian, Costa Rican, whatever accent. The thing is that we need to learn to communicate, and the more languages we speak, the better human beings and communicators will be. And that is something that authorities, schools, universities, and the most important, students have to understand, right, Eliberto? And respect our identity and respect the different cultures. That's why I always advise my students to travel. Before getting married, I tell them, travel, learn about other cultures, learn other languages, and you will see that Pepe, Jose, Maria, Juana is not the most beautiful, but there are there are other beautiful people in other places, beautiful cultures, delicious food, things that we can learn, but we can do it better if we learn to speak other languages. Okay, thank you so much, dear Maria Alejandra, for your time and your expertise. And you have a few seconds or minutes to say your final words today.
Thank you to all of you for being here today and for listening to me and for this that we have done today, that is trying to find a way to make things better and to build up future global citizens.
Right.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, dear Ale. Thanks a lot, Eliberto in Venezuela. Thank you so much, dear Roxy in Lima, Peru. Thank you, Iván Suazo in Costa Rica. Juan Rafael in Mexico, and Manu and Maria Nilda. I don't know where they are from. Hello, Manu, Maria Nilda. Not around. Well, thank you so much, and everyone. Ofelia Mendoza in Mexico in Facebook, Isabel Ruiz in Peru, Medalit Hollywood, the Oshwed, Lisa.
Hi,
Hello, Maria Nilda. Where are you from?
I'm from Dominican Republic.
Oh, thank you for being here. Something to say, Maria Nilda.
No, I'm okay. I'm listening just, and I understand that's the different opinion. That's okay. I'm agree.
Thank you so much, Maria Nilda. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and also let me say thank you to 𝐵𝐸𝐻𝐵, Vero Sanchez from Peru, and other people, Protiva, Rani Karmarker in what's the name of this country? I don't remember. And Mary Scholl said, fantastic session, Maria. I so appreciate your wisdom and experience. And she said that she started working in the school where you were teaching. She started working there. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Thanks a lot. And see you in 2 Sundays. Goodbye. Thank you, Ale,
Thank you.
Roxana, Ivan, Juan Rafael, Eliberto, Leonardo, Maria Nilda, Matu, and everyone in Facebook Live. Have a nice
Thank you.
Sunday.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ale.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Time for me
Bye-bye.
to do the cooking and the washing up, Roxy.
Okay.
The happy
Okay.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See
Take
you.
care. Take care.
See you. Bye.